Hashem, Mincha is going to be 8:05. Please be on time. As we were discussing yesterday, the halacha that Birkat Ala Mechia comes before Borei Nefashot. So if a person has cake and he has a cup of milk, a cup of orange juice, so the bracha of Ala Mechia comes first. First you have to say the Ala Mechia, then you say Borei Nefashot Abot. The Yerkut Yosef writes something interesting based on what his father wrote in Halichot Olam. He says that's true when you're having a drink. So a drink is definitely not in the category of something that's considered fruit. But let's say a person is eating cake, he's having cookies, he's having cake, and he's also having fruits, apples, he's having let's say watermelons, and then the other types of fruits. So now, it's true that on an apple, you're still supposed to say Borei Nefashot Abot, just like you would on a drink. And same thing would be true for a watermelon, or etc., etc. But now you have a different question, because here you're saying Ala Mechia. And in the Ala Mechia, you mention one of the things you thank God for is Tinubat Sadeh, the produce of the field. And since it's mentioned in the Ala Mechia, so Yerkut Yosef says that in itself can unintentionally exempt the Borei Nefashot Abot. And we don't want that, because we want to say the specific bracha that is fit for the produce of the land, which is Borei Nefashot. So the Yerkut Yosef says the proper order in such a case is to say Borei Nefashot Abot before you say Ala Mechia. That way you know for sure you're not going to be exempted from the Ala Mechia, because you already preempted and you said Borei Nefashot. And yes, it's true in general, we don't say Borei Nefashot before Ala Mechia, but in this case where the Ala Mechia will backhandedly cover your Borei Nefashot, so then you have to start with the Borei Nefashot and say the proper bracha on the watermelon and on the fruits of the tree as well. Now he says, what happens if I didn't? And this is a very common case. Let's say a person accidentally already said Ala Mechia and didn't realize he's supposed to say Borei Nefashot first. So he says in that case, the halacha would be that you wouldn't be allowed to say Borei Nefashot. You're sort of semi-exempt, at least questionably exempt, and therefore it precludes you from being able to say Borei Nefashot Abot. Now in truth, this Yerkut Yosef was written about 20 or so years ago. In the new edition of Hazon Ovadia, there's a very, very interesting language where he takes this out. He takes out this whole thing about Ala Mechia, and instead of Ala Mechia, he inserts if a person had fruits of the Shivat Aminim, and he had other vegetables, and then he said Me'en Shalosh, and he finished the Me'en Shalosh as you're supposed to do on the Shivat Aminim with Al Haaretz Ve'al Perot, that Al Haaretz Ve'al Perot will exempt other fruits. Now that is a clear implication that the Hazon Ovadia, which is the latest edition, doesn't hold of this whole thing of Ala Mechia, which is a bracha on grain, is going to exempt fruits just because there's a few words called Ve'al Tinuvat Sadeh. It's the main thing that is able to exempt is the end of the bracha, which mentions Al Haaretz Ve'al Perot. So based on this Hazon Ovadia, it would actually come out that if a person said Ala Mechia, it doesn't exempt fruits or vegetables, because the two brachot are completely separate, and the mentioning of Al Tinuvat Sadeh in itself is not enough to exempt. There's no beginning, you don't mention fruits, at the end you're not mentioning fruits, and therefore would not exempt the fruits of the land. However, if you had Me'en Shalosh of Shivat Aminim, which you actually do mention the fruits, like you had olives, you had grapes, those are from Shivat Aminim, pomegranates, dates, figs, those fruits, and you had them, and you were required to say Ala Haaretz Ve'al Perot, that Ala Haaretz Ve'al Perot will exempt the watermelons, the strawberries, and therefore we don't want that, and the proper way would be to go ahead and to say the Borei Nefashot before that Me'en Shalosh. But for Ala Mechia, such a requirement based on the Hazon Ovadia would be unnecessary, which presumably means you would go back to the rule of starting with Ala Mechia and saying Borei Nefashot. So as a conclusion, it would come out, when it comes to Ala Mechia, there is no situation where Borei Nefashot should precede Ala Mechia, but when it comes to Ala Perot, then Borei Nefashot should precede it. If that Borei Nefashot is on vegetables, then it would have to precede. If it's on other things, let's say you had a cup of water, so then in a Chanami, there's no reason to say Borei Nefashot before you say the Me'en Shalosh of al aperot. I hope that was clear enough. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.